to Books with Brandywine. I wanted to tell you guys about a non-fiction book that I really like. And the reason there's a question mark there on the non-fiction fiction is because technically I think it's supposed to be non-fiction, but the whole book is an interview between the interviewer and Mr. Monopoly. And we all know Mr. Monopoly does not exist. No matter how much they try to convince us he exists, he does not exist. But the whole thing works as if the interviewer, whose name is Philip or Baines, is having an interview. Like, he went to Mr. Monopoly's mansion and they had an interview together and they spent the whole day together, and then they go to like the places that are in the game and like Atlantic City, and they visit the different locations, and it's like they're having a conversation and an interview, but we know Mr. Monopoly's not real, so that would be like the fiction part, I guess. But technically I think it's supposed to be non-fiction, and it doesn't say anywhere on the back. But I love this book. I don't even know if this book is still in print. I would assume that it is, but I bought this book a really long time ago. And the reason sorry, I never told you the title. It's called The Monopoly Companion, The Player's Guide. The game from A to Z, winning tips, trivia. And this book has been on my mind a lot because you guys saw on Twitter I was talking about the new Monopoly for Millennials game that came out, that I'm not gonna lie, I think it's utterly ridiculous, and I did consider buying it, and only for two reasons. One, because you can't find it anywhere for the actual price, except for this one Walmart that happened to have two of them, because somebody bought them all out, and then now they're selling them online for like $40 to up to $70, and that's ridiculous. I'm never gonna pay that much for a regular Monopoly game. And the other reason I would buy it is because it introduced a new gameplay. In order to win, you don't win by having the most money, you win by having the most experiences, which are represented by these little round discs that are cameras. So it was the only reason I'd buy it. And then I found out that they came out with a Monopoly pizza game, which is gorgeous. Like, all the properties are different toppings. The box looks like an actual pizza box, and I want that game. I want it so bad. But it really got me thinking about this Monopoly Companion. I have had this book for, I want to say like 10 or 15 years. I don't even have the date in here. Let's see if it has the date of when it was published. It was published in 2007. So I've probably had it since 2007. And it's really good. So it breaks down, like inside, you can see there's a lot of like pictures in here. So it breaks down the history of Monopoly, how the game got created, who actually started it, who said they started it. And then it breaks down, like, it even shows like diagrams of like the original game, and there's like another original game. And then it breaks down like what each of the different spaces represent, and what it was like to actually be in Atlantic City back in the 20s, I think it was. And it gives you all kinds of tips on how to play the game. There's chapters that are specifically dedicated to strategy and stuff for the game. It talks about, so it's got like all these cool diagrams, which are Mr. Monopoly's tip sheets for Boardwalk and Park Place. So it talks about like different strategies on what properties you should get and what order you should get them. It talks about these really cool things that I had heard of in passing, but until I read this book, I didn't know for sure that they existed. And they are Monopoly tournaments. So there's little tournaments that, you know, people just have for fun. They're like, they just want to throw tournaments. And then there's like city-wide tournaments where you find a champion for the city. And then they have statewide championships. And then they have, I think they're like, a big championship to find the champion for all the United States. And then they have a world tournament. And they do the world tournament every 4 years, I think he said it was. And I want to do it. I want to do a Monopoly tournament. but I've never done any Monopoly tournaments. And so, like, I've always been obsessed with Monopoly, but I've never really had anyone to play with. And yes, Mom, I know you're going to watch this video, but I'm going to say it anyway. My mom cheats really bad. Like, if I landed on, or if she landed on go to jail, she didn't have to go to jail. I think she actually got paid. And if she landed income tax, she got paid. And so yeah, so my mom cheats. So I never actually played the game normal, except for maybe once or twice in my life. But I did collect Monopoly boards. I used to have the classic Monopoly board. I had this, I think it was the 75th edition of the Monopoly board. I had the Lord of the Rings Monopoly board, one of the Pokemon Monopoly boards. I had the Barnes & Noble Onix Monopoly board. And I forget which other ones I had at that time. And when we moved here, I had to sell all of them, and I only kept one of them, which is the 75th edition. Oh, and I have 2 different kinds of Monopoly card games, which they actually show one of them in here when they're talking about the different kinds of Monopoly boards. So I have that one, and I actually have another one. And whenever I've come across the Monopoly chocolate board twice, which that one never lasts long because I eat it. I found it once when I was little, and then I found it once at Walmart a few years ago. And it's cute. It's like a little Monopoly board, and the property pieces and the houses and everything are made out of chocolate covered in foil, and I always eat them. I love them. I love the chocolate Monopoly board. I buy it whenever I find it. And so now I have Monopoly Gamers, the first one that came out, not the one with the Mario Kart. And I have the 75th edition of the Monopoly board. And I feel like I have another one that I'm blanking on which one it is. And I really, really want to get that Monopoly pizza one. So I love Monopoly. I've been collecting them for years. And which is why I bought this book as a companion to it to add to my Monopoly collection. So there is a lot of good stuff in here. And it was just good fun. It was fun to learn. It was fun to get to know some more. I convinced my husband to play with a game with me after reading this, and I used some of his strategies. The important thing for the tournaments that it mentions in here is that they don't use the, what do they call them, like the in-home rules. So like the rule where if you land on free parking, you get all the money that's been collected in the middle of the Monopoly board. They don't actually do that in the tournaments. That was always one of my favorite rules, is I love that rule. And I had one of my friends, he always had a rule that if you had, like, the houses were a finite number, and it turns out that's an actual rule that they never followed in my family, because I had so many Monopoly boards that we would just open the next Monopoly board and get more money or get more houses as we needed. But you're not supposed to do that. So he actually would use this strategy where he would buy all of the houses, and he wouldn't necessarily upgrade to hotels, because once all the houses are gone, nobody else can buy them. And you can't just say, oh, well, I would imaginarily buy 4 houses and buy the hotel and just skip the hotel because there's no building materials. And so he would block us all from the houses in that way. And that's actually one of the strategies that they mention in the book. And they talk about people that have used that strategy. And I was like, he was actually doing it the way it was supposed to be done. But yeah, so I like this book. If you are interested in Monopoly, or if you're just interested in board games in general, I would definitely suggest getting it. It is really fun, it is really fast, and you can learn a lot about Monopoly from reading this book. I will see you guys in a couple days. Don't forget to like this video, especially if you want to hear more about book guides or just nonfiction books in general. I have a bunch that I usually try to rotate one nonfiction and one fiction. I've been really bad about it lately, but I do have, like, my whole bottom shelf is nonfiction books. So if you want to see more book reviews on nonfiction books, just let me know in the comments. And I want to know, what is your favorite version of Monopoly? I want to know. There's so many awesome Monopoly boards out there. I will see you guys later.